Hello everyone. Today we are going to be making a pillowcase. This is a standard size pillowcase. You can see here we have a cuff and the piping or the trim, and then here the body of the pillowcase. We are going to be using the burrito method, and let's get started. Here I have my 3 fabrics cut. This is going to be the main part of the pillowcase. This here will be my trim, and this here will be the cuff. So my purple is cut at 27 inches, the white is cut at 9 inches, and then I have this light purple or pink color that is cut at 2 inches. Now, we did cut the length, but we did not discuss the width, and I picked these particularly because even though they're all fairy dust by Tula Pink, I have them lined up over here on the fold, and they're all aligned, but as you can tell on the other side, they're all different widths. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure it's all lined up on the fold really well. Then I'm going to come along and cut this to where they all are aligned. So I will get my ruler out and do that so it's nice and clean. And then also it still leaves me room for a pillow. This is for a standard size pillow. So any standard pillow you have, this will fit as long as you're using fabrics that are at least 42 inches wide. And now I have a nice smooth edge over here. They all align. For my little example here, I'm showing a directional fabric. So a directional fabric means that it would have an upright position. These are not good to use for this style, and I will show you why. When you have your fabric cut, I'm just going to move this out of the way. When your fabric is cut, it's cut off the bolt like this. Now here I have the selvage, and on the other side, the other selvage. So when we cut this off, let's pretend this is our 27 inches. When we cut this off, we actually sew the cuff and the trim right here. And once that gets sewn together and it goes through the burrito method and comes out, your cuff will be right here. So you'll have your cuff here for your pillowcase. So this means this is how it will lay on your bed or wherever you're going to put your pillow. So your hearts or your design that has direction will be sideways instead of being upright. So for this particular pattern, you want a non-directional fabric. I also like to give them a nice press just to make sure that they all are going to lay pretty flat. After I press this, I do take the 2-inch piece and I folded that in half and put a pressed line through there. So I'm just going to fold this back over, and then the same is true for the cuff. It also gets pressed in half, so I lay it out the width of the fabric, and then I fold it over in half here. And I can set these off to the side for a moment. And the first thing we want to do is, I have that press in there, but I do want to open this back up and have it right side up. And what I mean by right side up is I can see this is the back of the fabric and this is the front, which is also referred to as the right side. And I'm going to open this all the way up and lay it flat. And then on top of that, I'm going to open my larger fabric and also lay that down on top of here. Now, the way most people do it is they will align these, and then they will take this piece and put it on here, and then they sandwich them all together and make sure they align. So I like to, instead of having it as 3 pieces, I like to treat this as 2 pieces. So I'm going to actually take this part and I'm going to go ahead and put a little tack stitch in here, some basting stitches to hold that in place so it doesn't shift when I sew everything together. So I'm going to do that at the sewing machine and I'll be right back. I have the trim piece now basted on. You can see the stitches are very large. It's just right at the edge also. I don't want to use too much of a seam allowance because I don't want that to show. So now this piece is attached. I don't have to worry about trying to sandwich all of these pieces and hold them together. I'm just trying to hold this piece now to this piece. So I am going to go ahead and right side up. And this piece here is also right side up. We sewed our trim to the right side of the fabric. And now I'm just going to go through and start pinning or clipping. I try to avoid pins where I can. So I just align up these edges. And put on the clips. You don't have to put too many clips. It's not like you would have to worry about, you know, putting clip right next to each other. Just every few inches apart will work. So I'm just lining up my edges, my raw edges. And this will also help hold it in place for our next step, which is going to be creating the burrito. It is quite an interesting method. Almost have it all clipped here, and then we'll start the rolling process. You can see here where it's, even though I've done the trimming, we still have a little bit of unevenness. Don't panic if you see that as you're putting yours together. It's very easy to clean up. So now that we have these clipped together, we're going to take the body of our fabric and we're going to just roll that up. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. We just have to be able to get it out of the way. So I'm going to roll and roll, and you can see my cuff is behind it here. And this, I'm going to just roll a little bit tighter. And now we're going to bring over this piece to meet up here. So we're going to clip that together now. So line it up and just lift up my clip. Maybe put an extra clip as I go. And this will help keep it all together as we stitch it. And when we stitch this together, we are only going to be stitching along this line that we've clipped. If you are more comfortable with pins, feel free to use pins. I just like the clips, so that's what I use. So we're not going to sew the end or the folded side. We're only going to be sewing along this clipped edge all the way down. We are going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I am going to sew in my 1/4 inch seam allowance and then I will be right back. Surprise! Now we have a burrito. You can see my 1/4 inch seam allowance. I did not sew this end or this end, they are still open. And now we are going to pull our burrito out so we have the making of our pillowcase. So I'm just going to grab it here and start to pull that out. And it takes some wiggling around to do. So I'm going to hold the cuff and pull this through. And you can see right now we have the beginning of it. Our cuff is here. And then we also have our little trim and then the body. Now on this end, you can see that I have a pretty good alignment. I might trim just a little bit up here on the cuff, but here I do have where it's a little wonky. So I'm going to actually trim this to where it is straight now. I'm going to trim this, I'm going to lay my ruler along the edge, get a straight line, and then I will trim it. Then I'm going to go and just give it a little bit of a press with my iron, and then I'll return. Okay, I have this pressed, and after I pressed it, I went and cut this to be very straight. You can see that it has a very nice line there, and I checked both sides. Now this video is designed for beginners. So I'm not going to show a French seam today or talk about using a serger. We're talking about just using your sewing machine. So what you would do is you would take this along where your cuff is and you're going to fold this in half. And when you're putting this together and you're sewing, you want to make sure for a clean looking pillow that these align here. So that is the first place I'm going to clip it together. And then I also want to make sure that these are flush at the top, so I have a nice clean edge and they are flush. And then I will continue clipping all the way down. And this will be folded in half, lined up to where my corners are lined up. Everything is aligned, so I'll just lay this out and flatten it with my hands. And then I will continue clipping all along this edge here where it's open. And then down here where it's also open. And then this side is already enclosed. So the only thing left for us to do is sew along here. Now, if you have just a straight stitch machine, that's okay. Just know that you will have some fraying of the threads that may stick up. If you have a zigzag stitch, you can also use a zigzag stitch. I'm going to finish clipping this together, go to my sewing machine and add a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way down and around and close. You do not want to sew your cuff closed. That is where your pillow will slide in. So I will come back once I have everything clipped and sewn, and then we'll be ready for the next step. I have the two sides stitched now, this side and the bottom, and I have my cuff up here. I'm going to go ahead and turn this right side out. And just kind of poke out the corners. It doesn't have to be anything super sharp. This is a pillowcase. So I just poke that out. And there we have it. It's a pillowcase. I do like to give it a little bit of a press, but I can see my cuff and my piping or my trim here, and then the body of my pillowcase. One thing that I do want to point out is on this side you got a nice smooth edge because you know, it's nice and even. This is where it was folded over, but where we sewed it, I was talking about lining it up, and as you can see on mine, they don't exactly line up. I'm okay with that. It is done. I was going for done and not perfect, so that is not going to bother me. When I put a pillow in here, I'm going to put that side down on the bed. No one's even going to see it. So now I'm going to give this a press, put a standard size pillow in there, and show you what that looks like. And here is our pillowcase. Inside, we have a small standard pillow. It is one of the cheap ones from Target, so it is not very thick. So you could fit a thicker pillow in here. Just make sure it's the standard size pillows. Some people I do know stuff a queen size in here. I don't know if I would do that, but the standards work very well. Well, I hope you enjoyed how I put together my pillowcases. And here's another angle of it with the pillow in there. This is one of the little skinny cheap ones, pillows from Target that I use for modeling, and you can see that I still have room for a nice sturdy fluffy standard size pillow. Well, thank you for watching.